My name is Isabella, and what I am about to share with you is not a dream, not a hallucination, not a fleeting moment of unconsciousness. It is something I lived, something that reshaped every piece of who I am. I never thought about death, not really. It was one of those distant concepts, something that happened to others, in stories, in the news, but never to me. My life was predictable, structured, ordinary. That morning began like any other. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled my small apartment as I went through my usual routine. I stood by the kitchen window, watching the sleepy city wake up, the sun painting the buildings with golden light. The streets below were already buzzing with life, cars honking, neighbors rushing to their daily commitments, the rhythm of another ordinary day. I took a sip of coffee, letting its warmth spread through me, and sighed. Life had become a cycle of responsibilities, of endless worries. Bills stacked on the counter, reminders of obligations that never seemed to end. Work had consumed me. The weight of expectations, the pressure of making everything right, left little room for anything else. I grabbed my keys, slipping into the familiar comfort of routine, never questioning if today would be any different. The drive to work was the same as always. I weaved through traffic, my mind racing with a list of unfinished tasks. I barely noticed the world outside, trapped in my thoughts, drowning in a sea of responsibilities. Then, everything changed. A sudden, sharp pain shot through my chest, like a fist squeezing the air out of my lungs. My hands clenched the steering wheel as my vision blurred. The sounds of the street, the hum of engines, the radio's soft melody, they all faded into an eerie silence. And then, the impact. A violent force slammed into me, the screeching of metal, the shattering of glass, the deafening explosion of the world collapsing around me. My body jerked, the car spun, and then, nothing, just silence. A silence so profound it felt like existence itself had paused. I opened my eyes, but something was wrong. I could see my car crumpled against another vehicle, smoke curling into the sky. I could see people running, their faces frozen in shock. I saw paramedics rushing toward me, but I wasn't in my body. I was above it, looking down at the twisted wreck, at my own motionless form. There was no fear, no pain, just a stillness, a strange detachment, as if I had simply stepped outside myself. I watched as they pulled my body from the wreckage, their voices urgent, their hands working frantically. Someone was crying nearby. Yet, I felt no sadness, only peace. And then, I saw it. A light. Not just any light. It was alive. It pulsed with warmth, with love, with something beyond words. It wasn't just shining. It was calling me. I felt myself being drawn toward it, as if an invisible force was pulling me, not against my will, but with a gentle, undeniable insistence. I didn't resist. I didn't even think to. The light enveloped me, wrapping around me like the purest embrace, dissolving everything I had ever feared. And in that moment, I realized something that changed me forever. If you've made it this far, you are already part of this journey. This is not just my story. It belongs to all of us. We are a community, connected by something greater than ourselves. If this resonates with you, if you feel a pull toward something deeper, something beyond the ordinary, I invite you to join us. Subscribe and be part of this space where we seek, where we listen, where we awaken together. And if this message touched you, leave a like. It helps this story reach more souls who may need it. I was moving, yet I wasn't walking. I wasn't flying. It was as if I was being carried by something unseen, drawn deeper into the light that surrounded me. The further I went, the less I felt like the person I once was. The worries, the burdens, the endless cycle of responsibilities. They all faded into something small, something distant. The pain, the fear, the regrets of my life, none of it mattered here. There was only warmth, peace, and a love so profound that it made every earthly emotion seem fragile in comparison. And then, just as I was surrendering completely to this new reality, I saw him. At first, it was just a presence, undeniable, overwhelming, yet familiar in a way I couldn't explain. Then, through the radiance, I saw his form, his face. There was no need for an introduction. My soul recognized him instantly. Jesus. His eyes, oh, his eyes, held everything. Love beyond comprehension, a depth of understanding that pierced through me. There was no judgment, no accusation, no disappointment in his gaze, only truth. A truth so pure, so absolute, that I felt my very being tremble before it. "You are not meant to stay," he said, his voice more than just sound. It was a force that resonated within me. I wanted to speak, to tell him that I never wanted to leave this place, that I had never felt more alive, more whole, more home. But before I could, the world around us shifted. Suddenly, I wasn't just standing before him. I was seeing, truly seeing. Below me, the earth unfolded like a grand vision, but not the earth as we know it. I saw beyond the physical, into the very fabric of existence. I saw the forces at work, both light and dark, moving through people, through cities, through nations. Some souls burned like beacons, their spirits alight with purpose and divine connection. Others, many others, were wrapped in shadows, chains upon their souls, unaware of the forces controlling them. I gasped. It was all so clear, the distractions, the fear, the lies that had been carefully placed to keep people from awakening to who they truly were. The world was not as it seemed. Jesus lifted his hand, and a new vision appeared before me. I saw souls leaving this earth, crossing the threshold between life and eternity. Some moved toward the light effortlessly, their faces radiant with peace. Others hesitated. Some turned away. Some screamed in terror as they realized the weight of their choices. I saw those who had lived in love and those who had lived in selfishness. I saw how each life was reflected in the soul's journey beyond. And then, he showed me something else. Something that shook me to my core. The prayers of the faithful. I saw them rising like streams of golden light, reaching across distances, touching lives in ways unseen. I saw the power of a single prayer, how it wrapped around a suffering soul and pulled them from darkness. I saw the prayers of the desperate, the cries of the lost, and how heaven listened to them all. At that moment, I knew every word spoken in faith, every whispered amen, every plea for guidance, it all mattered. If you are reading this now, know that you are part of this moment. There is power in faith, in prayer, in unity. If you believe, if you feel the call within your heart, type Amen in the comments below and let your name be lifted in prayer. Tell us where you are from so that blessings may reach your home, your city, your family. Your voice is heard and your faith is seen. And as I stood there, watching the earth below, I knew my journey was far from over. I wanted to stay in that moment forever, standing before Jesus, surrounded by light, truth, and love, unlike anything I had ever known. But I felt it, something shifting, something changing. The visions had not ended. With a single glance from him, my surroundings transformed again. I was no longer standing in the presence of pure radiance. Instead, I was somewhere else, watching. Below me, the world unfolded like a great tapestry. but it was as if I were seeing it for the first time. Not through human eyes, but through a lens that revealed what had always been hidden. I saw the earth not just as land and oceans, but as a battlefield, not one of war and weapons, but of spirits and forces beyond the comprehension of most. I saw invisible hands pulling strings, manipulating hearts, spreading confusion. There were whispers in the ears of leaders, pushing them toward greed and destruction. There were chains wrapped around entire generations, keeping them bound to lies they had unknowingly inherited. But amidst the darkness, there was light. I saw them, people like candles in the night, their souls burning with faith, with truth, with something that made the darkness tremble. They were scattered, some standing alone, others in small groups. But together, they formed a web of light that stretched across nations. They were the ones who still listened. Jesus turned to me, and though he had not spoken, I already knew the question forming in my heart. "Why?" I whispered. "Why is it like this? Why are so many blind while others see?" His expression was filled with love, but also with sorrow. "Because the world has been deceived," he said. "Because the truth has been hidden for so long that many no longer recognize it. Because the enemy fears what will happen when my children wake up." Wake up. Those words struck something deep within me. Wake up. I thought about my own life, how I had walked through the world oblivious to this greater reality. I had been consumed by work, by routine, by temporary worries that meant nothing in the grand scheme of eternity. I had been asleep, just like so many others. I felt something stir inside me, a purpose, a calling. "You are being sent back," Jesus said, and my heart clenched at the words. "Because it is not your time, because there is work to be done." I looked at him, desperation rising in my chest. But how? How do I make them see? How do I show them what you've shown me? His gaze softened, and he placed a hand over my heart. The warmth that radiated from his touch filled every part of me, and I understood. I didn't need to convince anyone. I only needed to speak. "Tell them," he said, "and those who are ready will hear." I closed my eyes, letting the truth sink into me. And when I opened them again, the vision of the earth was still before me. But now, I saw something more. Hope. Because even in the deepest darkness, the light had never been extinguished. Because despite the lies, despite the chains, people were beginning to wake up. Some were searching, some were questioning, some were feeling that small, unshakable pull toward something greater than what this world had told them was real. And maybe you feel it too. You are not alone. You were never alone. There is a reason you are here, reading these words, feeling this stir in your soul. This is a place where truth is shared, where we seek together, where we listen for the voice calling us home. If you feel this, if something within you is awakening, I invite you to be part of this journey. Subscribe, like this video, and join our community as we walk this path together. I took a deep breath, and then everything faded into light. The light around me faded, and in an instant, I felt the weight of my body again. I gasped, my chest rising and falling as if I had been drowning and had just broken through the surface of the water. Sounds crashed into my ears, urgent voices, footsteps rushing toward me, the beeping of machines. I was back. Harsh fluorescent lights stung my eyes. The sterile smell of antiseptic filled my nose. I turned my head slowly, my limbs heavy, as if my soul was struggling to fully return to this body. Then I heard a voice I knew. "Isabella? Oh my God, Isabella! Can you hear me?" My mother. Her hands trembled as they grasped mine, her eyes filled with a mixture of disbelief and overwhelming relief. Beside her, my sister was sobbing, pressing her hands to her lips as if afraid to believe that I was truly awake. A doctor stood frozen in the doorway, his face pale as he stared at the machines monitoring my vitals. This is impossible," he muttered under his breath, shaking his head. She was gone. Clinically gone. I wanted to speak, to tell them everything I had seen, everything I had learned. But my throat was dry, my voice trapped somewhere between the world I had left and the one I had returned to. I was alive. But I was not the same. The days that followed were a blur. Nurses came and went, checking my vitals, whispering among themselves when they thought I couldn't hear. My family stayed by my side, their relief palpable, but I could sense something else lingering beneath their joy. Worry, uncertainty, fear of the unknown. They didn't know what to make of my return, and the truth was, I didn't either. I spent hours staring at the ceiling, my mind replaying everything I had witnessed. The weight of it pressed against my chest, an urgency I couldn't ignore. I hadn't been sent back to continue life as it was before. I had been sent back for a reason, but how could I tell them? How could I explain the depth of what I had seen when they had never glimpsed beyond the veil? The first time I tried, I was met with silence. My mother, still emotional from my recovery, simply stroked my hair and told me to rest. My sister forced a small smile and changed the subject. My father, always the logical one, left the room. I knew they loved me, but love wasn't the same as understanding. Days passed, and the more I tried to suppress the truth, the heavier it became. I had been given a gift, not for myself, but to share. If I kept silent, wasn't I betraying everything Jesus had shown me? So, I spoke again. I gathered my family in my hospital room and told them everything. From the moment I left my body, to the presence of Jesus, to the vision of the world as it truly was. I told them about the deception, about the chains keeping people asleep, about the forces working to keep us from remembering who we are. My sister was the first to break the silence. This sounds like a dream, Isabella," she said hesitantly, her eyes darting to our mother for support. "Maybe your mind created this because of everything your body went through." I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of their disbelief press against me. I had expected this. I had known it wouldn't be easy for them to accept, but that didn't change the truth. I turned to my mother, who had been gripping my hand as if afraid I might slip away again. Her face was pale, her lips slightly parted, as though she wanted to say something but didn't know how. "I know how this sounds," I said gently, my voice steadier than I expected. But it wasn't a dream. I was there. I saw Jesus. I saw what's really happening in this world, what we've been blinded to. My father, who had remained quiet throughout it all, sighed heavily and ran a hand over his face. "Isabella, you went through a traumatic experience. Near death can do things to the brain. Hallucinations, out-of-body sensations. It's all been studied before." I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. I had to remind myself that they weren't rejecting me. They were rejecting something that terrified them. I didn't try to argue. I simply looked at them, letting them see the certainty in my eyes. "Then explain why I know things I could have never known," I said softly. "Explain why. Ever since I woke up, I can feel things I couldn't before. Why I can sense people's hearts, their burdens, their fears. Why, when I close my eyes, I still see the truth that was shown to me." Silence. My sister shifted uncomfortably. My mother squeezed my hand. My father lowered his gaze. They had no answers. And yet, they weren't ready to accept mine. I felt exhaustion creep into my bones. I knew I had planted a seed in their hearts, even if they weren't ready to let it take root. But the mission I had been given wasn't just for them. It was for the world. I had to speak. I had to share. So I turned to the only place where my voice could reach beyond the walls of my hospital room. I picked up my phone, hesitating for only a moment before opening a blank post. With a deep breath, I began to type. I wrote everything. My journey beyond the veil, my encounter with Jesus, the reality of the unseen battle surrounding us. I wrote about the deception that had kept us asleep, the forces working to keep us from remembering who we truly are. I wrote not to convince, but to share, because I knew that the ones meant to hear it would hear it. And then, with my heart pounding, I pressed publish. Hours passed. At first, nothing happened, but then, something I never expected. My phone began to light up with notifications. First, a few comments, then hundreds, then thousands. Some were skeptical, some called me crazy, but others, so many others, wrote things that made my heart ache with recognition. I thought I was alone in feeling this. I've seen something like this too. I never told anyone. I've been searching for answers, and this feels like the truth. Tears filled my eyes as I scrolled through the messages. I had feared rejection, but I hadn't been prepared for this. There were people out there, strangers from different places, different walks of life, who had been waiting for something like this. People who had felt the pull in their souls, but had no words for it. People who had been longing for confirmation that they weren't imagining things. And now, they had found it. If you are here, reading this, maybe you were meant to find it too. Maybe this is the sign you've been waiting for. If you believe, if you feel something stirring inside you, type Amen in the comments below. Let your voice be heard. Tell us where you are from, so that blessings can reach your city, your home, your life. Because the time of awakening has begun. The days that followed were unlike anything I had ever experienced. The post I had written, my testimony, spread faster than I ever imagined. People from all over the world began reaching out, sharing their own encounters, their own moments of divine revelation. I was overwhelmed by the sheer number of souls who had been silently waiting for confirmation, for a voice that spoke the truth they had felt, but had never been able to put into words. But where there was light, darkness always tried to interfere. It started with strange glitches, my posts disappearing, my videos failing to upload. Then came the warnings, messages from anonymous sources telling me to stop, emails filled with veiled threats. And then, the calls, silent, breathless calls from numbers that didn't exist. I won't lie. There were moments when fear tried to take hold, moments when I wondered if I should walk away, if it was worth facing such resistance. But then, I would remember. I would remember the moment I stood before Jesus, the way his voice had wrapped around my soul with truth so undeniable that it became part of me. I would remember what he had shown me, the deception, the forces trying to keep us asleep, the chains that needed to be broken. And I knew. I could never stay silent. I continued sharing. And every time they tried to silence me, more people listened. The light only grew brighter, because something had begun. A shift, a great awakening. The world as we know it is changing. Those who have lived in darkness are beginning to see. Those who have felt the weight of an invisible burden are realizing they were never meant to carry it. Those who have been lost are finding their way home. And if you are here, if you have stayed with me through this journey, then maybe, just maybe, this message was meant for you. Maybe this is your moment to listen, to awaken, to step into the truth that has been waiting for you all along. I want to thank you for being part of this, for opening your heart, for allowing these words to reach you. If this touched you, if you feel something stirring within, say Amen in the comments. Let your voice be counted among those who are ready to see. And this is only the beginning. There is more to be revealed, more truth that will change everything. If you are ready, if you want to take the next step, then watch the next video. It will be glorious and life-changing. Just click on the video that is appearing on your screen right now. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Amen.